We're on our way down the Beltway to the garage we all love. We're gonna find out about the politics of the day and know what's going on. Even though they might cancel the election, we still want to know what's going on in the Beltway Garage. That's right, it's the Beltway Garage. Hi, guys. That's right. We're back after months and months of penitence and reflection. We have returned to the Beltway Garage. And in the Beltway Garage, here he is, Virgil, Texas. Hello.
Hi, Junior Mechanics. Virgil here. Very excited to talk to you about the only real, actual politics that exist, that matter, that anyone can engage in. By which, of course, I mean electoral politics that's all conducted virtually and through corrupt processes.
That's it. That's all we have, folks. Get ready. Just deal with it.
And with that in mind, it is June 21st, a mere 80 months until the general election. And as of right now, Joe Biden looks like he's got a comfortable national lead over Donald Trump, a high single-digit lead in states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and a lead in voters over 65, a demographic that Trump beat Clinton in last time around. Matt, as a mechanic in the Beltway Garage, how do you feel about Biden's general election chances?
I think he's going to win. It looks right now, as much as people have a hard time accepting that because they're so used to Republicans blowing it, specifically blowing it to Donald Trump, I think that they're just failing to acknowledge that, yes, he would have won, certainly beaten Biden, if we assume that the economic conditions of early 2020 had held. Although I honestly think that there's good reason to believe that wouldn't have been the case, even minus Corona, because there's a good argument to be made that the U.S. was already entering a recession before coronavirus hit the economy. But anyway, Trump was in a position where he could have cruised to a re-election on the strength of a strong economy and using culture war to depress Democratic turnout while increasing his own among his base. And that could have worked. But I think at a certain point, once events start intervening, you got to acknowledge the reality of that. And it feels like everything that makes America feel like it's falling apart to a lot of people, all of those things are personalized in the form of Donald Trump. And that there very well might be, at least for one election, a genuine boycotting of the Republican Party, at least at the presidential level, by the sort of relatively affluent white suburbanites who determine the election, determine the outcome in the crucial swing states.
At least in the current system, in the current coalitions.
Right. And that and the only things that could possibly intervene between now and then are only more likely to make that outcome happen. Because right now we're staring down the barrel of the super dole, as Matt Brunig calls it, the extended and increased unemployment benefits, which have really been the only thing keeping the U.S. economy from completely collapsing, expiring at the end of July. I tend to think that at the last minute they will offer another emergency dispensation, but the fear that a lot of people, including people on this show, have had earlier in the crisis of Trump seizing the moment to become a true right populist and become the Huey Long Father Christmas of the white downwardly mobile classes that would signal apocalypse, that is not happening. And in the absence of that, I think we are looking at Trump getting soundly defeated in the fall.
You know, I try to imagine a hypothetical argument in Trump's favor that he would win, and I just can't do it. I can't concoct that argument even just to tear it down.
I think the closest thing for me, the most persuasive thing for me that is a counter argument is just the person of Joe Biden, his specific mental cognitive decline, the fact that he is not up to the moment, and that the more that he is given the platform, the more that he is scrutinized, the more obvious that becomes. And I have honestly at this point feel like they are absent a catastrophic collapse, which will involve some sort of last minute replacement candidate of his mental or physical health, that they have figured out a way to keep him enough in the public mind to remind people that there is an alternative to Trump without reminding them that he isn't a clearly senile man. Because the lack of passion around Biden, like people point out, people love Trump. They don't love Biden. That's true. No one loves Biden, but no one hates Biden. That is the important distinction. Hillary Clinton was a negative mobilizer. A lot of people voted against Hillary Clinton. That dynamic is gone. The Trump now is the negative mobilizer, and Biden cannot match him. The person of Biden does not have all of the associated energies that Clinton had to bring people out to vote against him, which means that all of the actual turnout mobilizing force, it'll be with his rump base, but as we can see, that's not enough to win with. Anyone marginally independent, I think, is being fully convinced that, okay, we should stop this ride, and because Trump is so personally associated with every element of the current crisis, it's going to be very clear to most people that the only way to do that is to get rid of Trump.
Well, Trump's not good with exogenous events.
Yes.
Events, occurrences, things of that nature, never really been his strong suit.
Very bad for him. And he looked so strong for so long because his first 3 years of presidency were blessedly event-free.
No, nothing happened. I mean, there was shit that he did that he and his administration concocted.
Yes, but it was all on their terms. It was not reactive. And now they're reacting, and he can't do that.
The one thing was the hurricane, which he completely fucked up. It made him look awful.
But which didn't hurt him because it happened. It's called Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Nobody in Puerto Rico can vote.
Yeah, they can't
for president.
vote. There you go. It's that Trump is so closely identified with the crises and identified with his own incompetent reaction to the crises.
Yes.
It's like if he had just disappeared for the past 3 months, that would have been way better for him.
Absolutely.
But obviously he can't do that. Instead, he's chosen the worst possible path.
Yeah.
In response to the police murders, in response to the coronavirus.
Yep.
Which is to continue to self-promote while you're fucking up.
Yeah. Because like Nixon was able to sell himself as a peacekeeper in 1968. Trump cannot do that. He is now the face of violent protest. And sure, a lot of people don't think that, and they like him, and they think this is all Soros plot. But that wasn't enough to win in 2016, and it wouldn't be enough to win in 2020. I mean, he won in 2016 because people stayed home or decided to give him a shot because of how repellent the Clinton campaign was. That dynamic doesn't favor him now. All those people, or a large chunk of them, will either stay home without voting for him again or go back to the Democrats.
One indication that the Biden triumphalism isn't just another, media delusion like Hillary winning in 2016 is that Trump himself is personally, apparently, incredibly pissed about the way his campaign is going.
Oh, yeah, no, he's very unhappy, which means that they're going to have to keep shifting to keep him happy, which is not the same thing as maintaining a good operation. They've already bought ads in the D.C. area. They spent money on ads in D.C., which is a complete waste of money because that's as blue an area of the country as you can find, and barely any electoral votes, by the way. But because Trump was getting mad that there wasn't enough television telling him he's good, so they had to spend money just to reassure him on his local stations that he watches that people still like him. That's not a campaign geared around persuading people, bringing people back into the fold who might have been disillusioned by the last year or so.
Right, and the campaign also held a rally in Tulsa yesterday.
Yes.
Just to keep Trump happy.
Yeah, they went out, they did a big Corona exposure event, a potential super spreading event.
A Corona party.
A big Corona party that it was the worst of all worlds for him because it got everybody riled up, but it did not provide ownage because it was notably sparsely attended. And that was a story that emerged from it. And now, just like he spent a week explaining that I went down the ramp perfectly. I went down the ramp perfectly. It was a perfect ramp. It was a perfect phone call. It was a perfect ramp walk. And I drank from the water perfectly. Now he's going to have to be, actually, it was full. Or Antifa kept everyone out. Either way, he is on his back foot. I just have to say that I don't think that there is adequate language to describe the sensation of watching a room full of adult voting age Americans spontaneously rising to their feet to applaud a 74-year-old man for successfully drinking a glass of water without spilling it on himself.
I thought you said cryptically at first, and I thought, okay, that's a cool direction. Trump is going to become a mystery guy.
He's going to start peacocking and using Alpha Kino.
Yeah, I'm just a little I'm just a little twisted, you know?
Yeah.
On that rally, yes, the rally was a huge, embarrassing disaster. And I do kind of think it's funny that in order to placate Trump, his campaign is now engaging in activities that will murder his base of support.
Yes.
A few notes from the news about that rally. This was from the New York Times. Masks were being handed out as supporters filed into a designated area at the arena Saturday afternoon, but wearing them was not enforced. Some people threw masks out immediately after they received them.
Hell yeah, you got to do that.
Little image of defiance at the Trump rally, just throwing your mask on the ground.
Living your freedom. I respect it. And now they're going. They've already decided that they're going to have a maskless convention in America's Wild West commerce zone, Florida, instead of having to worry about the nanny state of North Carolina stopping them from just licking all the handles of the convention center.
Florida,
they're gonna. That's those people at those conventions. Those people actually matter, and they're all even just as old as the convention goers, and they will be strategically and intentionally exposing themselves to coronavirus to make an obscure point that I honestly feel like most people think is some version of insanity.
well, I don't think that the actual smart people in the Republican Party, you know, the rich, you know, the people who are in on the scam are going to be in Jacksonville.
It'll be interesting to find out. I honestly have talked about this. I would like to go.
I think it's not really going to be a convention. I think it's just going to be a rally or series of rallies. That's my intuition.
We'll see.
Anyway.
We'll see how committed they are to the bit. Either way, I'd like to go.
There's been a lot of Michigas about this on Twitter the last 24 hours, and I don't think it's truly important, but do you think the anemic attendance was a factor of his base being actually scared of Corolla as ever?
I honestly think that that's it. And some people say that means like, well, it's not really, it doesn't really bode for his, it doesn't bode poorly for his enthusiasm if they're not really worried about enthusiasm. If they're not really not enthusiastic, they're actually worried about Corona. Well, if they're worried about Corona, then to some degree they have accepted that it's real and dangerous. And honestly, once you've accepted those premises, Trump's entire thing becomes less compelling. You know, and the true believers are going to become more and more wrapped up in their belief. QAnon is going to become more and more prominent as a dominant ideological coherence amongst them and an explanatory model for why things aren't going the way that they should with God Emperor Trump in charge. But I think a lot of people are just going to start kind of getting vaguely embarrassed about the whole thing, and certainly less likely to go vote when there's no chance it's going to be less of a fucking contagion festival in November than it is now.
Honestly, the only argument I could make that Trump would be reelected is that it would have to be a combination of two factors. One, that people believe Biden is such an overwhelming favorite that they either don't vote, especially because there's a pandemic going on, or they vote third party. They vote their conscience. A recent poll showed that a majority of Biden voters say they're not voting for him. They're just voting against Trump. It would be a combination of that. And, I guess the second one would just be the virus reducing turnout. But as we've seen in recent primaries, that's just not the case.
Yeah, people are still very motivated. But the wild card for the election, in my opinion, is just the wildly disparate standards that are going to exist between states. Republican states are going to be demanding that people go to these corona-filled polling places, which will, of course, be reduced in number to deal with the virus, which will have the effect of decreasing or increasing wait times. I mean, we already saw catastrophic wait times in Georgia. They've already reduced the number of polling places in Kentucky for the upcoming primary there from 3,000 something to 200. That will persist into November, and we can talk about how there's still this huge amount of enthusiasm, but on an election day, on a general election day, you could have a genuine, if this pattern persists, you could have an actual breakdown in the legitimacy of those votes.
Well, it depends if anyone actually calls the election illegitimate, or specifically Joe Biden. If he just says, if they just tell him, Joe, you're not president, he goes, well, okay, back. Then it's not going to be a thing.
I disagree with that a little bit, just because, I mean, people think back to 2000 and everyone just sort of rolled over and accepted that. The conditions right now are not the conditions that obtained in 2000, which was the tail end of the longest post-war job creation era in America. It was all obviously a rickety tech bubble that burst shortly after that, but it was a moment of relative peace, I mean, no foreign wars happening, no terrorist threats looming in people's minds anyway, and a secure and growing economy. We are basically in the exact opposite of that condition now. So I think like a genuinely botched election could have results that would reverberate farther than I think we can assume now, and certainly by comparing them to previous cases that happened with much different social political frameworks.
But it's contingent on the results. And in the states that matter, they have Democrats running the elections. Michigan will have Democrats running the election. Wisconsin will have Democrats running the election. Georgia will not, which is why I kind of think Georgia is fool's gold this time around.
But what you would have there, see, this is the flip side of that. Presumably, in those Democratic states, you will have a large use of absentee ballots. But Republicans, all the way from the president to his base, and Republican governors, Republican senators, the infrastructure of the political party itself, have deemed those votes illegitimate already. They say that if you're mailing in votes, that's as good as having MSNBC, and MS13,
MST3K,
MSNBC, MS3K, and MS13.
They're letting robots vote.
They're letting Rachel Maddow just check out all of the things, and they do not like that. Is to them a mail-in ballot is prima facie fraudulent, and so you will have the other thing. You will have a vote that is not considered legitimate by Republicans, and of course, the vast majority of those voters are just going to mumble because they are more comfortable. But you also have Republican-controlled states with hegemonic Republican political parties, and in the aftermath of a Trump loss, a motive to become the next champion of America, the rump America that these people think that they're representing.
Well, it's a question of whether they can expand past that 25, 35% or so of the country who will deem a Biden win illegitimate no matter what, in the way that they thought Obama was illegitimate, that Clinton was illegitimate, and so on.
Right, but once again, the conditions are different. It's a fucking pandemic and an economic collapse at the same time. I just think that the edges are going to be sharper this time. And that one way or the other, some significant group with significant political representation will and with an incentive structure that will move towards that energy being funneled by demagogues and by power seekers, that you will have you could have a genuine crisis. Now, I think it would probably subsume short of violence for the meantime, but it would be the context of the Biden presidency.
There's going to be a Raytheon Acres autonomous zone starting up.
Depending on how things break down, I'm not ruling it out.
One last note from that Trump rally. This is a tweet by Robert Klemko. At the Trump rally, Brian Clothier, 61, is wearing an adult diaper over his pants that reads, "Scientists say farts spread the virus. I COVID my ass to stop the spread."
Well done, sir. Thank you for your service.
Another thing that I think, might hurt Biden is third-party candidates. Because, again, people do not like Biden or really think about him or give a shit about him, which, is licensed to vote against the Democratic nominee. The Libertarian Party had their virtual convention last month where, bucking the recent trend of nominating ex-Republican losers, they passed over Justin Amash to nominate two complete randos.
Oh, snap.
Joe Jorgensen is their nominee, and Spike Cohen is their VP pick. Spike Cohen, who took his name from the My Little Pony movie in the 1980s.
Okay.
His Wikipedia page lists him as an American activist, entrepreneur, and podcaster.
Oh, God. All right, never mind. I support him.
It might interest
critical support for podcasting politicians.
It might interest you to know that Spike Cohen is a little random.
He's epic. Is he epic, sir?
From ABC 15. "We are giving you free ponies," Cohen said, explaining a central national security proposal. "We are also going to arm them with 20-millimeter Vulcan cannons."
I'm soy-facing so hard right now. You guys can see me in the Zoom chat. I am fucking soy-facing my balls off right now.
Yes, the Libertarian Party probably could have taken a lot of these anti-Trump votes this time around if they picked that fucking guy.
Well, that's bad. It's like they love doing that. They love nominating ex-Republican office holders. He's still in power. He's still in office. What the hell?
He's still
I
in
would love to know how that happened because
He's still
maybe
well,
they're
I
just
think honestly because they saw Bob Barr lose and Gary Johnson lose and thought, okay, we got to go in another direction here because clearly what the people want is a random person that nobody's ever heard of.
I believe that their shadow Secretary of State is a Ron Swanson Funko Pop.
Let's move on a little. Let's change gears a little bit here and use a word that, again, is only acceptable in the safe space of the Beltway Garage. That it might induce a little bit of cringing in you to hear this term operated, but you are not allowed to feel bad or make fun of this in any way. We're going to talk about the Veep stakes.
Ooh, yeah. Love a good Veep steak.
Late last week, Amy Klobuchar, who seemed to me to be a good fit for Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee, bowed out and said that Biden should pick a woman of color. Biden has already promised to nominate pick a female vice presidential nominee.
Yes. Klobuchar must be one of the most angry people in the world right now because I genuinely do think that she was on the glide path to get the.
I think it would have been her also. It made sense
because they were terrified of losing the Upper Midwest. Even though, as I've said, it's the Balkans of America. We all hate each other. Wisconsinites don't give a fuck if you're from Minnesota. Fuck you. Fuck the Vikings. Fuck off. Fuck.
Well,
Fran,
they would call.
Fuck Hubert Humphrey.
They would call. What's his face from Wisconsin, Minnesota's third senator.
Yeah, Yeah, Humphrey. And he lost to Kennedy in 60. Fuck off. But anyway, it was specious reasoning, but they were convinced of it. But then the George Floyd thing happened, and not only did that necessitate it being a woman of color, but her personal involvement, her office as district attorney in Hennepin County, declining to charge Chauvin on a previous police killing. That was game over for her.
Yeah, her closeness to law enforcement in Minnesota was pretty much her,
I think that this is a very interesting example of how we think of the presidency as this sort of unbound office, and the president is someone with unbounded power. And in some respects, certainly post the national security state, that's true. But it's still an office that is fundamentally reactive. You're reacting to political and social and material conditions that are emerging. You just have to ride that wave. You have a limited degree to actually, all of your decisions are within a limited window of options. And so now you have something like, this is his first real choice, right? This is his first independent pick as the nominee. This is a preview of his presidency. Because in the current moment, the president has basically free reign to choose whatever VP they would like. And yet he has found himself by happenstance, by the eruption of the Black Lives Matter protests, and by his need to appeal to the female voters who make up a majority of Democrats. Now he is essentially has to pick, instead of between anyone he would want, he's bound to like 2 or 3 viable options, maybe just 2, and that really does speak to how his presidency would operate.
Well, I don't think it's a definite mandate to pick a woman of color. That's just something Amy Klobuchar said to save face.
I think that they have made a calculation that they don't have any other options. And
Biden and his team?
Vetting would indicate that that's what they think anyway, because the short list is all, except for Elizabeth Warren, who, bravo to Amy, the fucking queen, bitter and spiteful to the end. From hell's heart, I stabbeth thee. For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee. Going down with the ship, she still has a moment to shiv someone who ran against her and who she probably didn't like because she just took the snacks from the green room or something. Elizabeth Warren, brava. But everyone else who's been leaked as a shortlist candidate is in fact a woman of color.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
Who else?
Tammy Baldwin, Gretchen Whitmer, Gina Raimondo, unless you're counting Italians as people of color. You're talking about different
information than I am because
well then I will read you Biden's shortlist. These are the people
wait a minute, what is this from?
These are the people confirmed to be
on Wikipedia?
getting vetted by Joe Biden.
I'm just saying, before you list them,
aggregated from news sources. You can take it with a grain of salt.
Before you list them, I'm just going to say that I saw a final vet list of like 5 names, and none of them but Elizabeth Warren was white. So you tell me what you heard.
Okay. The list that I have includes Tammy Baldwin, Keisha Bottoms, Val Demings, Tammy Duckworth, Kamala Harris, Maggie Hassan, Michelle Graham, Gina Raimondo, Susan Rice, Liz Warren, and Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, I saw a much shorter list. It was Rice, Val Dennings from Florida, the mayor of Atlanta,
Bottoms,
Elizabeth Warren, and I think Stacey Abrams.
I actually thought that Abrams wasn't being vetted because 10 days ago she said on the Stephen Colbert program that she was not called by the Biden campaign, but obviously that could have changed.
No, I don't think she's going to be the pick, but I do think it's going to be one of those people.
I found her name conspicuously absent from that list. And of course, obviously, this is not something that the campaign is putting out. This is something that's wheedled out by journalists from sources. Obviously,
if it's not a woman of color, I will be very surprised. But the specific one it is, I actually don't really have a strong hunch. I don't really know.
Well, I don't think it would be Warren in any case. I do not think it will be Warren. I did not think so before the protests.
No, she never made sense
before the coronavirus.
The nominee.
It's very clear that Warren and Biden don't have a great, affinity for each other. Warren, I mean, just the clip of Warren attacking Biden at the last debate where they both stood on stage together. I mean, that's enough to disqualify her. I mean, just because it's just not good footage to have around. I also don't see the upside in it. You have to basically adopt all of Warren's policies, but you don't agree with them. Or
I mean,
do
I don't think Warren
on all of it.
I think Warren would be pretty agreeable if they put her on the ticket. I don't think they have to worry too much about her, but she's also a fucking dish rag with no political instincts, a terrible politician, both retail and on camera.
Well, I'm not saying she changes. I'm not saying she changes the policies. I'm saying that's the way the ticket will get discussed. Is, oh yeah, Joe Biden's not so moderate, which is obviously the wedge that Republicans want to use, that he's an Antifa, MS-13, far left lunatic. Putting Warren on the ticket helps them make that argument, as disingenuous as it is.
She's the worst of both worlds because yes, she is associated on the right with extreme leftism and on the left with being a loser. There's no plus.
Right, and she also doesn't, bring anyone to the ticket who was not already going to vote for Vice President Biden.
Yeah.
So it's all downside. So if you say that if we look at your list and say that Biden is going to abide by the rule that a vice president should first do no harm, who would that be between Bottoms, Demings, Harris, and Rice?
Harris to me seems like I could see Rice maybe because she was never a prosecutor and you don't have to deal with the whole cop thing, which you would have a problem with Demings too, who was a literal police chief. But at the same time, Rice is not a politician really. And so I think the safe choice is Harris. And I think that they're going to do the same. She's the Tim Kaine of the available options and they're the Democratic Party. So they're going to go with the Tim Kaine.
I don't know. I mean, Harris's downsides are, one, she's a loser. She flamed out on the national stage. 2, she's from a very, very safe state. Doesn't really matter. She's not moving any votes anywhere else. 3, it is the prosecutor thing. I think that does engender a lot of criticism from the left. I don't know if that's going to be decisive, but Demings and Harris being so closely tied to the criminal justice system. Obviously, as African-American women, it is harder to tie them to the various multiple injustices of the criminal justice system. But nevertheless, I mean, that argument is going to be there. Like, that's a way for the right to say, what about this, unarmed black man who was murdered by the police when Kamala Harris was the California Attorney General and not prosecuted?
I think so, but honestly, I feel like this is going to be a return to the sane understanding that vice presidential picks don't really do anything. I don't think it's going to really matter either way. This is going to be, like most elections about an incumbent, a referendum on the incumbent. And given how things are right now, 20% real unemployment, maybe by November, maybe 300,000 dead from corona, and
we saw that
continual convulsive social unrest, all of which are associated in the mind of the public with Trump. That is going to be the motivator, and any kind of Brad Parscale mind warfare is going to be not have much impact beyond the people who are obsessively paying attention to that shit online.
Can I throw one wrinkle in this Veep conversation? Which is,
yeah, sure.
Biden is very old and increasingly so, older every day, and though he has not said anything, there is kind of the looming implication. It's the implication of it all that he might only do one term.
He's apparently, that was leaked from a funder dinner he had last like a few months ago. Apparently, he was saying he would do. He was saying offhandedly that he would do one term. I don't think anyone realistically thinks he would serve more than one term.
Well, I mean, presidents live to be pretty old now.
Yeah, but he's already out to lunch.
That's true. I mean, he might wander into traffic. He might command the Secret Service, a Secret Service member, to give him his gun so he can play Russian roulette. All kinds of things can happen.
I think he will, no matter what, be one-term president, is because, as I have said before, he is not operating from a base of power. He is borrowing one from the Obamas. But that if the party decides that he, as an 88-year-old geriatric person whose brain is gone and sundowns at noon, is a liability for re-election, he will have even after 4 years, even if he does well, he will have no base to operate off of because he's stranded. He's up there alone at the top of the ticket without any organic support.
So that means more than usual, the Veep would be presumed to be the future leader of the party.
That's what's so weird about it, though, because either way, because of the way that they've decided the options have been limited to them, they're going to be picking from people who also don't have any support within the party. Either way, you're not realistically creating somebody who could plausibly fill a gap and take the party on their take possession of the party, as it were. They're still going to be on loan from the Obamas. And so that's why the person who makes the most sense is Michelle Obama, honestly.
Yes, that is the only person who would be a consequential pick. And if Biden were to pick Michelle Obama, it would be complete game over. Wave the white shirt right now.
I do think that's
guarantee
that
a potentially 400 electoral vote victory.
Yeah, no, that is the one pick that could actually be consequential.
There are no downsides to it. She is someone who is liked by a broad, section of society, like 65% likability.
Yep.
And the amount of time that it would take to tarnish your reputation, one, it's just not enough. It's not enough time, even if you're spending, $300 million in negative ads. And two, you look like an asshole when you attack her. The lady who wants to make our kids eat carrots.
Yeah, the only people who
wants to make my awful round son eat fucking vegetables.
There are people
so he's more pleasing to look at.
There are people who hate Michelle Obama, but they are 201 Facebook Wahhabist psychopaths who are utterly unintelligible to people outside of their subculture.
Meanwhile, Biden, this is the one thing that would guarantee Biden African-American turnout at Obama 2008 levels.
Which, if you combine that, this is really where it all comes down to. If through a savvy VP pick or just the negative mobilization power of Trump being the face of white supremacy, you get back to something like a 2016 or a 2012 African-American voter turnout with a significant shift from white college-educated suburbanites to the Democrats. That is, honestly, landslides are now much more relative than they were in the past. It's harder to do the kind of blowout that happened in 1964, but it would be huge. You could see Texas fall in that scenario. You could see Georgia, even with the scam governor in there, falling in that scenario. Especially
with older voters supporting Biden by high single digits over Trump.
Yeah, that's
senior
gigantic.
Citizens, because Biden he speaks in certain tones that are only picked up on by people over 65.
He it's a battle of like the electorate is old, the electorate is dying, the country is dying, and the contest is between two different ways to be a dying old person. There's the Trump method of raging against the dying of the light and refusing to admit your diminished capacities, or there's the Biden way of slowly assimilating the understanding that you don't have it anymore, which is exemplified by his tendency now to, in the middle of sentences when he gets lost, to give up and apologize to the person he's talking to, a thing that Donald Trump would never do in a million years. And I feel like because of the catastrophic nature of the moment, most people are terrified, and I think they want someone who can help them to talk them through their hospice stay, as opposed to just smash all the flower pots and overturn the Craftmatic adjustable bed like Orson Welles at the end of Citizen Kane, like Trump wants to do.
A eulogizer in chief.
A eulogizer in chief. They've been pitching that. There have been the multiple stories planted in the past month about how Joe Biden is great at eulogies and at offering people condolence. Like the recognition that like your job now is to be the you are the hospice patient in chief and the hospice administrator of this terminal national patient.
I will say one thing. I have no idea why Rice is on Biden's short list.
I think because she's somebody from the Obama administration. She stands in for.
Was she? What did she hold the elevator for him once?
She reinforced. She is a woman of color who reinforces by having been in the Obama administration, connection to the Obama administration, and unlike basically every other option that's on the table, she never served in a capacity as a law enforcement officer or prosecutor.
Yeah, but then you have to. Keisha Bottoms has not, but.
Yes, but she's a mayor. That puts her way lower on the totem pole as possible options.
Fine, but with Rice, she's never held elective office before. She has no national profile, and it means that you have to own all the Obama foreign policy shit that otherwise people would just forget about, because that was her portfolio.
Yeah, but I think Felix is once again correct. People don't care, people don't vote on foreign policy. And Susan Rice, I mean, it's a few more, gray zone articles about the butchery of the Obama years, which will all be correct, but which will be irrelevant to the mass majority of people voting.
It just feels like an unwelcome distraction if, again, the goal here is to have a VP pick who will not provide any distractions. Though I kind of wonder if distractions are good for Biden, because if the right is talking about Biden's vice president, they're not talking about Biden.
Yeah,
they are squandering time they could be using to smear Biden.
And distractions are famously beloved for old people because it breaks routine and allows them to exercise their remaining neuroelasticity.
Bottom line, who's the VP?
I don't know. Harris.
2 months ago, I would have said absolutely not Harris. It's just it's hard to see it.
It's
because
the Tim Kaine pick.
I also think there's no love lost between Harris and Biden.
Certainly not. No, but I don't think they care. I mean, at that level, I don't think either of them give a shit. Like, he doesn't give a shit about anything because he's not conscious, and she just wants power.
I do think at some point, I mean, to some degree, Biden wants a governing partner. And I do think that
he needs someone to smooth Jello into his mouth.
Right now, the polling numbers should convince him that he's got this thing in the bag, so I'm going to look at putting together the best administration. And I think if that's what he's going for, it would not be Harris. But
who's the option? Who's the alternative?
Right. That being said, everyone else is just a total unknown for me. Predicted right now has Harris at over 50% to be the VP nominee.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with the chalk. That's my only instinct.
I will. Well, it's not fun if we both say Harris.
True. So you got to pick someone else. Get creative with it. Get nutty.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll say Abrams, but only because I'm not allowed to say Harris.
Okay.
I mean, in some ways, she is the safest pick. She doesn't have any kind of. I mean, she doesn't even have a statewide profile.
True, but that's where just her lack of experience and connections hobbles her. She doesn't. I don't think she has an advocate within the campaign or the party, and I think that's probably not true of Harris. because she's actually held office and she's integrated into the top levels of the party in a way that Abrams hasn't been.
Well, it is. I mean, it is just so hard to say because we are again talking about a sundowning man, and they're going to put 5 names in front of him, or probably 5 pictures in front of him, and he,
they're going to
put
put peanut butter on the one they want him to pick, and then that'll take care of it.
It'll be Eric Trump with the magazine covers all over again.
Absolutely, that's exactly it.
By the way, if you go on Eric Trump's Instagram page, the latest post that he's made is a picture of Joe Biden with the caption "Happy Mother's Day."
Owned. He's a girl. He's a fucking girl. They're really struggling.
Actually,
I think people are having a hard time watching Trump not know what to do, but he's clearly absolutely at sea right now.
Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say Harris too. I don't want to feel left out of the Harris campaign. Chris, how do you feel?
I'll be wild and say that he's going to do the meme candidate and do Michelle Obama. Why not? You're right. It would work. Everybody would be insanely hype about it. The Democratic
if she wants
coalition,
it, she can get it too. That's the other thing.
I don't think she wants it. I don't think she wants it. Is the thing.
That's the thing. That's why I don't say it's going to be her. If she wanted it, it's hers to cap.
That is interesting because being Joe Biden's vice president is a virtual guarantee that you will get to be president.
Oh yeah,
either that he passes away in office, or you just get to succeed him.
And that would be the thing that is, as I was saying earlier, that thing about like the continuity and what is the future of the party, who is the person after Joe Biden. I mean, then you lock in what the Clintons wanted to do and just have it be an Obamastocracy for a whole generation.
Yep.
Just like it's like going to be, it's like they say on the alt-right, God Emperor Barron Trump. It's going to be God Empress Sasha Malia.
Yeah, Exactly. That would be the goofiest way for this to go, and so I think it's probably the most accurate.
8 years of Empress Sasha, 8 years of Empress Malia, and then they're going to have more kids. I mean, that's just the case.
Does he have any nephews? Does that weird guy...
At that point, the White House will have been relocated to the Pacific garbage patch.
Yep.
And then after Sasha and Malia, Obama's weird MAGA cousin in Africa, if that guy has any kids.
Malik.
Yeah. Malik Obama. Yeah, that's actually the one thing that will bring the country back together.
Yes.
That's like a Habsburg marrying a Bourbon.
Yeah. Yes.
Brings peace to the continent.
Yes, the two thrones united. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go down ballot. New York and Kentucky vote this week, and in New York's 16th congressional district, 16-term Congressman Elliot Engel is facing a primary challenge from high school principal Jamal Bowman. This is a diverse district that includes parts of the Bronx and Westchester, a majority-minority district represented by a white person, which is almost exactly the same circumstance that Joe Crowley found himself in next door in 2018 when he was defeated in the primary by AOC. Bowman has the support of Bernie, AOC, Justice Dems, and the Working Families Party. Engel has the support of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the establishment.
And Hillary Clinton. Elliot Engel was Hillary Clinton's first endorsement of the cycle because she is never not the worst person to ever exist.
Engel was recently caught on a hot mic at a BLM rally saying, if I didn't have a primary, I wouldn't care, which is probably not the thing you should say.
I actually, looking at that tape, I think that he's right, but it doesn't help. Because his defense is that he was badgering the guy who was in charge of the rally for a speaking spot. He wasn't on the dais, and he wanted to get on there, and the guy kept shining him on. And he said, if I wasn't having a primary, I wouldn't care. I think what he was trying to do is like mollify me, like, hey, I'm not trying to bust your balls. I wouldn't care if I didn't have a primary, but I need to get on the dais. Not specifically about like the issue they were protesting.
Oh, okay, I see.
But even if that's the case, and I think it is, it still bespeaks someone who is a hollow shell of a fucking person.
It's cheapy behavior.
Yes.
Engel is best known for showing up to the State of the Union address hours early so he can get an aisle seat and shake the president's hand. Which by my reckoning, he has done nearly 30 times.
Fucking herb!
He said, quote, "It's an honor to shake the hand of the president of the United States, no matter who it is."
Loser! Fucking dork. No wonder he is taking this challenge very poorly. He's whining about it. He's hilariously talked about how AOC's endorsement of Bowman is dictatorship, and him being in the same office as a sinecure for 30 years is not. He's very whiny. He's panicking. Crowley kind of took it in on the chin. He famously played a little song for AOC after she beat him, and then went off to be a lucrative
He
lobbyist.
did not run in third party, which he could have because he had the WFP endorsement ballot line.
He was like, "Fine, I'll be a delegate, or I mean, I'll be a lobbyist. I'll make my nut. It's fine."
Yeah.
Elliot Engel, as an older man, clearly this is his ambition.
Engel is like Jerry Smith.
Hand,
He majored in civics.
Shaking the president's hand like a Make-A-Wish kid every year is a special treat. And it's like, sorry, Elliot, you don't get to do that. You don't get taxpayer-funded vicious meets the president trips. You fucking dork.
Now, couldn't this just be resolved by some kind of special dispensation where Bauman becomes the congressman and Engel just gets to attend the State of the Union every year and shakes the president's hand?
They should. This seems like a perfect opportunity for a grand bargain.
That honestly sounds like a relief. The State of the Union is boring as hell. If I was a congressman and somebody could go in my place, hell yes.
Yeah, I bet you if you gave this to Bowman and said, Bowman, you get to be the 19th district representative. You're in the Congress. You're in the subcommittees. You're doing the stuff. But every year you got to give your ticket to Elliot Engel so you can shake the president's hand. He would say sure if he wouldn't, I don't want him in Congress either. If he wouldn't make that deal, I don't want him in Congress because that means he really wants to shake the president's hand and get that fucking dork away from me.
Well, I will say this. In Engel's defense, he stopped his ritual when Trump became president.
Oh, okay.
So it's no longer an honor to shake the president's hand, no matter who it is.
He should do more ads talking about that.
It actually does matter who it is, which classic flip-flop. Play the flip-flop alert.
Well, if Engel loses, and apparently there is some polling to indicate that he's behind.
He's down by 10, apparently.
This will be interesting because one of the big ways that AOC's victory was sort of minimized was the argument, which was true, is that she caught Crowley napping. Crowley missed.
I don't know. I don't believe that's true. I think
that she caught Crowley
there's
napping.
A little bit
of
myth making there.
Crowley spent a lot of money.
He did take it seriously, at least in the last month of it.
Well, okay, fine, but before that, she was able to build up momentum without a real opposition. Whereas Engel has been fighting like a cat in a sack for this the entire primary.
Well, he knows. He is one of a small number of white Democrats who represent a majority-minority district. I can't really think. I know there's one in Kentucky. Chandler, I think his name is.
No. Steve Cohen in Memphis.
Steve Cohen, thank you. Yeah.
The guy who has applied for membership in the Congressional Black Caucus, which, by the way, endorsed the white Engel over his African-American opponent.
Really?
Yes, CDC officially endorsed Engel.
Well,
it's almost like none of this shit matters, and it's all about fucking money.
Well, again, the dynamic of this race, it's very, very similar to the dynamic in 2018. It's that polling showed that Bowman was leading in black voters. Engel is leading in white voters. White voters make up maybe a third of that district.
Good luck, buddy.
In Kentucky, Amy McGrath, failed candidate for the House in 2018, is the establishment pick to take on Mitch McConnell. Last cycle, McGrath endeared herself to the MSNBC set with a video about how she overcame misogyny to bomb Muslims in Asia. She's raised an astonishing $40 million, but now she's found herself in a suddenly tight primary campaign. After the murder of Breonna Taylor by police in Louisville, progressive state rep Charles Booker's campaign has gained momentum, and it's possible Booker is the one kind of insurgent McGrath can't take out with a Hellfire missile. From the New York Times, I'm traveling Kentucky talking about structural racism, and I'm seeing folks, even 99% white, putting their fists in the air because they know that we can't let this moment pass. Mr. Booker, clad in a No More Knox t-shirt, recounted to a multiracial audience on Saturday in Lexington. Later in the same article, in an interview outside a forum on race relations she attended in Lexington, Ms. McGrath, 45, said that, quote, most Kentuckians believe in common sense approaches to solutions. And
I would hope so.
Quote,
if you've got a state where the majority does not prefer common sense solutions, then you're in trouble.
And are, quote, tired of the partisanship.
I know I am. I've had it with the partisanship. I want something that transcends partisanship. Some sort of a third position that encompasses all of politics and subsumes politics, I don't know, into maybe like an aestheticized spectacle of nationalism that makes us all part of like a corporate identity within the state, and then democracy is replaced with just this daily enactment of an authoritarian state religious attitude. Essentially, I think that has some legs. We could try that out.
Matt, she's a troop.
She's a troop.
She was the first Marine fighter pilot. She did.
Yes,
she did
she's Marine. What's a girl's name that's like Todd, but not? Never mind.
Theodora.
All of that. That's terrible. But it looks like this is another one where the insurgent might win, which I for some support, and I hope Booker wins. I do not think he will beat Mitch McConnell, but there are a lot of potential outcomes in this fall race, including the runaway landslide model, where late breakers go to Biden and Democrats in general out of a generalized revulsion at the moment and association of it with the Republican Party. And if that's the case, you want somebody who could take advantage of that to be as progressive as possible, and Booker is clearly to the left of McGrath.
The thing that I'm afraid of is that it's going to be like 2016, where a lot of people split their tickets, and they assumed that, again, Hillary would win, where they were repelled by Mr. Trump, but they voted third party in the presidential level, and then they voted for a Republican in the local level because they assumed Hillary would win. We don't like her. We want her to be constrained in some fashion by a Republican Congress. It's possible, though I don't really see the same thing happening because, of course, Biden and Clinton are different people. It's possible that the same kind of vote splitting would happen, especially among these suburban upscale whites who are the swing voters who largely have reactionary views. That they would say, yes, okay, I'm going to vote for Biden, not because I like him, but I want to get Trump out. And then I'm going to vote Republican for Senate and House and dog catcher because I want someone to keep tabs on Biden.
Well, I don't even think
there's a number of people who actually believe that divided government is a good thing.
It's true. It's hilarious, and they're morons. But they got taught that way by our idiot school system and its idiotic fetishization of the Constitution and the separation of powers and all that obsolete gobbledygook. But I don't think you don't even have to say that to talk about the uphill battle of Booker, because Trump's not going to lose Kentucky, even in the worst case scenario. So unless you have reverse ticket splitting and people like decide that Mitch McConnell is the bad guy but still like Trump, you don't even have a chance there.
I suppose so. I mean, I would guess that, Trump wins in a romp in Kentucky.
Oh yeah, no, he will win Alabama, or he will.
Kentucky's the one on top. Kentucky's the one on top of Tennessee, as we all know.
Yes,
it's the one. It's the one pegging Tennessee.
Yes.
So that's the more Appalachian character.
1 second, I got to get something, and then we'll finish up.
While Matt retrieves his Popeyes, one thing that I did want to say about McGrath is Democrats, they just love going all in on the person who lost their last election. She's like the fourth person of the Trump era that the Democrat that loses to a Republican, and then the Democrats are like, no, this is the person. Like Stacey Abrams. Obviously, that's extended.
I mean, Lincoln lost his last election before being elected president.
Well, I don't think that Amy McGrath is the new Abraham Lincoln.
You don't think that Bloodbath McGrath is the next Abraham Lincoln? I think she is.
I don't know.
In fact, I guarantee Amy McGrath is the next Abraham Lincoln.
Well, I guess I would want a military experience to preside over the Civil War too.
That's true. There is a difference. Lincoln was a self-taught lawyer, and McGrath, she went to the School of Americas and learned all the torture techniques. You remember that video, right? From 2018?
Which one?
The epic Amy McGrath video. That's like Mitch McConnell doesn't want me to bomb fucking Muslims in the Middle East.
I know that she's had a bunch of ads where she basically says the thing she's doesn't like about Republicans is that they are restraining the military. Yeah, I do know that.
Well, it's back to the Rahm Emanuel strategy from 2006, yes. Troops and cops. But now it's lady troops and lady cops.
We love our troops and our cops, folks, don't we?
Moving on now to primaries that are already over. According to Media Matters, at least 51 people running for Congress this cycle have promoted Q, Q, one of my side projects, is a government insider who leaves cryptic clues about the deep state cabal.
They're called proofs, Virgil.
They are called proofs. You also need the fucking decoder ring and a box of kicks to understand the proofs. And once you've added up the numbers and divided by 7, you realize that Trump has secretly arrested all the pedophiles and all a billion Chinese people for doing a virus.
Yeah, and replace them with holograms. That's important to remember. That's why none of them appear to be gone, because they've been replaced by holograms.
Jo Ray Perkins, the Republican Senate nominee in Oregon, is a Q believer. In her primary victory speech, she said, quote, "I stand with President Trump. I stand with Q and the team.
Yes.
Thank you, Anons." And repeatedly said, "Where we go one, we go all." Which, I mean, you want to talk about solidarity.
Yeah,
isn't that it?
They're practicing it.
There's two groups of people practicing solidarity in America: QAnon supporters and cop unions.
Yes,
like that's the actual solidarity. That's nothing,
basically it.
You are always my brother, no matter what you do, even if it is grotesquely immoral and evil and monstrous. While Perkins won't win, Marjorie Taylor Greene stands a pretty big chance to be seated in the 117th Congress. She finished in the top 2 in the primaries a couple weeks ago in a district that is very, very red in northwest Georgia. She beat her opponent by about 20 points, and even though the Republican establishment is coming down on her, chances are she's going to win just based on those numbers.
Yes, the inevitable thing. It was inevitable. The moment Q emerged and Trump became president, it was inevitable that eventually it would infiltrate the highest rungs of government, because it is the only way to explain the current moment. It's the only way to square the knowledge of what's happening in the world with your emotional and psychic connection to Donald Trump as a transcendent world historical figure. Because he doesn't look like one unless you're looking through the lens of the proofs, unless you're looking into the hat to see the golden plates that were dug up.
I'm looking at the Da Vinci Code number wheel, and I'm adding all the numbers together, and they told me this. In the videos, this is from the New York Times. In the videos, Ms. Greene said she would feel proud to see a Confederate monument if she were black, because it would symbolize progress since the end of the Civil War. Politico also reported that Ms. Greene said that black people, quote, are held slaves to the Democratic Party, that the 2018 elections were part of, quote, an Islamic invasion of our government, that George Soros was a Nazi trying to continue what was not finished. Ms. Greene also rejected the idea that racial disparities affect life outcomes, saying, quote, "Guess what? Slavery is over. Black people have equal rights," according to Politico.
I cannot wait for her to get to D.C. and try to meet Q. She's going to get into whatever subcommittee, like the fucking Hog Futures subcommittee they put her on, and she's going to be peppering the deep state with demands for information, because members of Congress can request almost any information they want. And I really hope that if she's a real true believer, she's just going to go ham. We're going to find out about accidentally, while she's looking for Q, we're going to find out about Roswell, who killed JFK, Lost City of Atlantis. We're going to find it all out, just her digging to try to find Q.
Q is a patriot, Ms. Greene said in a video posted to YouTube. We know that for sure. She added, "There's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take this global cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles out, and I think we have the president to do it."
Well, yeah, that'll be really interesting when she gets elected on the day Trump loses. The entire undergirding of her worldview destroyed the day that she has to take power. That'll be interesting. Somebody should be doing a documentary about this lady.
It's morphed, hasn't it? It's not. It doesn't have to be that Trump
but it will still have to accommodate
all the Satanist pedophiles, and they've been replaced by holograms. But it's more like, oh, we're all in this together. And, you know, we're all fighting the deep state Satanists together. And that was the real message of Q. It's a message of friendship.
Maybe, but that'll be possible for some other crowd. But she's going to be in office. She's going to have a narrative of what she's doing there. And that's when you get to the really interesting prophecy fails, like Millerite improvisation. And that's what I'm really interested in.
She might. I mean, it's obviously not going to be the first time we had a right-wing conspiracy person in Congress.
No.
Steve King was there for well over a decade.
Yeah, but there's something specific about QAnon is that it has a cast of
QAnon is
villains
just, I don't know. QAnon is just a modern manifestation. It's also, there is a watered down version of QAnon compared to the uncut, pure strain version that you could just shoot into your eyeball.
Orthodox QAnon.
Yeah. I mean, there was a congressman from Idaho in the 1990s who endorsed the black helicopter conspiracy theory that said that her constituents were being tracked by black government helicopters.
They probably were, is the thing.
Yeah, and I mean, good, because that in her district, I would say a good 80% of her constituents were people living in cabins making bombs, mailed to various college professors.
The anti-Masonic Party sent 6 members to Congress in the 1830s, and
Did they get rid of the Masons?
they did not. And in fact, the guy
Wait a
who ended
minute.
up heading the Masonic Party's presidential campaign, William Worth, was a former Mason himself. And what happened is when they got to Congress, they realized not only were all these guys Masons, but even other members of the anti-Masonic Party, they weren't really serious about getting rid of the Masons, and the whole movement kind of broke apart in dissolution.
So what you're saying is that
it helped form the backbone of the Know Nothings later on.
wait. So what you're saying is that everything is controlled by the Masons still. That we
Yes.
never solved the Mason problem.
We never did.
and that there's
like
still.
most presidents are still Masons and have been to this
So if
day.
you were elected to Congress, like the first thing they do is they sit you in this room and they show you a slideshow about, hey, welcome to the Masonic dominated deep state
Yep.
government.
Yep.
You're going
All
to have
hail
a great
Moloch.
time here.
Yeah. We're all going to open the Eye of Moloch together.
They
I
show
believe in
you.
us.
They show you a version of those anti-union videos. They show you when you start working for Target. That's
Yeah.
Hey, if you're not a Mason and you don't pledge your allegiance to the 13th level of the fucking eye pyramid, you won't be able to help your constituents. You don't
Yeah.
want that, do you?
No, yeah, you want to stay in office so that you can make things better for your district, and that's by talking into the asshole of the 33rd Scottish Rite Lodge Master as he's bathes himself in orphan blood.
You know how they built the Washington Monument? Masonry.
How? Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, are you surprised? You know who built the levees in New Orleans?
Masons.
Ones that fell apart during
That's true.
Hurricane Katrina, killed thousands.
They've kind of built everything. So, like, even if you're in a house right now, the Masons control it.
I guess what I'm saying is, if you see anyone with a trowel, make a citizen's arrest.
Do it. Or an apron.
If what's her name gets elected in Georgia, I would like to move to her district and run against her as an anti-Masonic Party candidate, saying that she may be taking on Q, but she has
She's
failed.
leaving the Masons. She's soft on the Masons.
She's soft on the Mason issue.
Let's do it. Well, the thing is that the Masons are folded into QAnon. They've already thought of this. If you've looked at like the big maps, they've absorbed basically every occult conspiracy into itself. It's a unified field theory. So you're going to need to invent a new thing for her to be soft on.
I don't know. What if she is soft on Q?
She gets in there and she's like, look, we really need to give the deep state a chance to tell their side of the story.
Yeah, she works. We need to. I'm trying to advance legislation, and that means collaborating with deep state pedophiles.
Do you guys want that bird sanctuary in your district or not?
We need to reach across the aisle to the deep state
Yeah.
pedophiles to
Absolutely.
have
It's the only way to get things done. We got to
get
be adults
things
about
done.
this.
If Biden becomes president, do you think the Democrats suffer catastrophic midterm losses?
Oh, yeah.
2020?
Oh,
2022, rather.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah, that's the Tom Cotton 2024, Q Wave 2020.
I still think it's going to be Mike
that's-
Lindell. I'm not
that's-
kidding. I actually do think it's going to be Mike Lindell before I pick anybody in Congress.
Well, that's the real thing about
2024.
Bidenism, to the degree that it's that we understand it, that it's an articulable concept of governance, that it will not break the wheel of Republicans and Democrats trading places because of people's widespread discontent.
Just Moriarty and Holmes pinwheeling into Rickenbach Falls for eternity. All right, that's a fun image to close on. Well, thanks, guys, for visiting the Beltway Garage. Stay greasy out there.